In this video, we've got widespread severe storms, not just for today, but heading into tomorrow along the East Coast, and the heat just continues to build across the South. So let's take a look at the details going forward. You can see we've got a powerful upper level low that's highlighted over portions of Minnesota. That will start to get its act together later on this afternoon and be diving southeast bound, bringing a lot of heavy storms, very high winds, even some strong tornadoes along a warm front draped across portions of Indiana and Ohio. And this will be a tailing cool front as well, so it will be somewhat back building and encompass a huge area of an enhanced risk for severe storms later on this afternoon into the overnight time frame. So let's take a look at the setup. On the surface map, you can actually see where that upper level low is right now, and that warm front is highlighted over Illinois, but that will be shifting eastbound, heading towards Indiana and Ohio later on this afternoon. There's the tailing cool front as well, so all this activity is really going to be winding itself up and then diving southeastbound, bringing a lot of high winds and some larger hail, and unfortunately some strong tornadoes with it as well. So let's take a look at the details from the latest update from the Storm Prediction Center. We do have a very large area of an enhanced risk really originating up here towards Michigan, diving down here towards Indiana and Ohio, through Kentucky as well as into Tennessee, and then in the overnight time frame it really gets active across Arkansas and further south into portions of Mississippi. A lot of these areas could be looking at some big time hail. So it originates further north this afternoon, all the way north, all the way into the Grand Rapids area. That could be seeing that hashed risk, those 2 inches in diameter or bigger. And then further south, that really along that warm front back into Indianapolis, through portions of Cincinnati and back into Louisville, all the way down into Paducah, and then even a further southern branch of the system could get its act together in the overnight time frame in eastern portions of Oklahoma, including the Little Rock area and back into Memphis with some larger hail associated with it. That would be an overnight type setup. But yes, we do actually, unfortunately, have the potential for strong tornadoes today. We're talking those EF2 type variety or bigger within this yellow shaded zone. And really, it's mainly maximized along this warm front. So anywhere from Grand Rapids down to Nashville, into Paducah, into Jackson, back into Louisville, really highlighted over the Cincinnati area. And those could be some strong tornadoes of those EF2 type variety or bigger, unfortunately, as this would fishtail down to the southeast into the later afternoon, into the overnight time frame. But if you are in the market for a weather station, I definitely highly recommend the Tempest Weatherflow weather station. It's the one I've actually had for 3 years. I know a lot of people have taken advantage of this on my channel. I greatly appreciate it. It's a 5-in-1 system. The cool thing about it is it only takes 10 minutes to install. So once you have one, you constantly get updates, and I've had the same one for 3 years, and they've always upgraded it, and you basically pay one price and you get all the benefits going forward. So there's a desktop version. There's 45,000 others that have the Tempest across the nation now. So they do also have a mobile app as well. Very convenient. If I do have a discount code for 10% off and free shipping, so I'll definitely have the link in the description below so you could possibly order one for yourself. But take a look at the helicity tracks, folks. This is going to be a widespread event. It's really going to be starting to originate in portions of Michigan. These are areas that could see the big time hail producers later on this afternoon, and unfortunately some rotating supercells that could have a lot of lift associated with it, spin at the lower levels, and produce a strong tornado, especially within the Indiana region, heading into Ohio, back into central portions of Kentucky, getting into portions of Tennessee. And then there's a southern branch of this system that could have some larger hail associated with it, and far extreme portions of southeastern Oklahoma, back into the Little Rock region. And this, I think, gets into the overnight time frame, back into portions of Mississippi, into Alabama, with some higher winds and some larger hail with those storms. So let's break down the details about 5-6 o'clock. So I do feel that's when things are really going to be starting to get active probably weather watches will be in place by 4 o'clock this afternoon. So we're looking at a nasty kind of squall line up here in Michigan. Those could be some big time hail and some larger high wind gusts with those 60, 80 miles per hour. And that would start to fishtail and back build along that warm front as this moves across. This is when we could be looking at some tornadic supercells start to develop within this corridor. And there's also another pocket down here towards into Arkansas as well. This is about 6 o'clock. So once we move into the 9 o'clock time frame, this continues to shift off into the southeast. I think most of the activity will be into eastern portions of Michigan by then. Now it's going to be in more or less central Ohio, getting into central Kentucky, and then that would dive down on the southern branch of this area back into Arkansas, getting into northern portions of Mississippi, and then heading into the midnight time frame. That's when the southern branch gets a little bit more active. So I think most of the activity is going to be done within the Michigan region, and then highlighted done over Indiana. Most of it's going to be done over Ohio, but now it's going to be moving into portions of West Virginia, getting into eastern Kentucky by then heading into central Tennessee, and then that southern branch will start to get active in the overnight time frame, clipping the southeastern corridor of Oklahoma back into Arkansas, and then that would eventually fishtail down into portions of Louisiana, even central Mississippi, with definitely some higher winds associated with that activity, and back into the Birmingham region into the overnight time frame. So once this moves through, it just continues to be activated along the East Coast. So once we get into the daytime heating aspect of tomorrow, heading into your Monday time frame, we have another enhanced risk, and I even feel like this would likely be upgraded as well. So if you live within, essentially say from New York City all the way down to Columbia, you need to be on high alert for, again, all three modes of severe storms, mainly a very high wind threat, and you could be seeing some larger hailstones, not as big as what you would be seeing up here at this system, but still fairly significant. Definitely seeing some high wind gust with this activity. So definitely be on high alert as we go into tomorrow time frame, as things look to be very active across the East Coast, and those could be some bigger time hail producers. So really anywhere from Charlotte to Greensboro, back into Richmond, all the way to DC. Those areas could see the largest hailstone of possibly up to golf ball size hail within this corridor. But even some quarter size hail could be, likely up near the New York City area, even far north as into the Boston region, as that squall line will be diving from the northwest down to the southeast into the afternoon, early evening time frame. But here's the breakdown on the winds for the next 24 hours. So I do feel like we're going to have several mesoscale convective systems, the first one being really highlighted further north across Michigan, back into Indiana and Ohio. That would dive into West Virginia. Some of those areas, 60, 70, maybe some isolated gusts where it bows out 80 miles per hour, maybe not out of the question tonight. And then that would get into the Kentucky region, back into Tennessee. And I do feel this activity would be later on into the evening time frame through Arkansas, back into portions of Mississippi. And then once we get into tomorrow, the higher winds would really be elongated along the East Coast, really places like into South Carolina, back into North Carolina, getting into Virginia, into the Delaware region, into New Jersey region, those areas, back into DC. Those areas could be seeing the highest wind gust probabilities heading into tomorrow afternoon, early evening time frame. But further south, it's just all about the heat, folks, and this is some dangerous stuff. I mean, they've just been inundated for the last week or two across the south, and that ridge of high pressure means business. It's coming back with a vengeance this time. We've got widespread heat advisories across the state of Texas, but not just Texas anymore, folks. It's going to start including Oklahoma, into Arkansas, into Louisiana, back into Mississippi. And those pink shaded areas, that's those excessive heat warnings. That's that 110 plus type variety. So all these areas are going to be seeing 110 plus heat indices. besides the panhandle. So this is some extreme heat on the way, and it's a prolonged event, folks, all week long. So it's just the dangerous heat indices because we're in an El Nino. I mean, this activity is very humid, so the feels like conditions are just been almost off the chart at times. Even some areas breaking all-time heat indice records across the region. And now as the air starts to dry out, maybe after Monday with that ridge of high pressure really starting to build across the state, then the humidity ticks down a little bit, but the actual temperature will ramp up. So either way, it's going to be hot, no question, no matter how you look at it, really all week long across the south. And as that ridge will continue to lift further north, it'll just encompass more states. So as we get deeper into that Monday timeframe, that ridge of high pressure just shifts further north. That just puts the storm track further north as well. So any unsettled weather would be really highlighted over the Great Lakes with that low pressure center. It remains unsettled even after the severe storms end. So these areas still get inundated with light to moderate rain in through the day onto that Monday time frame. And even into Tuesday, it continues all the way into Tuesday across Ohio, into West Virginia, back into Pennsylvania, back into New Jersey, all those areas across Connecticut, into Rhode Island. You're still going to remain on the somewhat cooler side for June standards, but more unsettled, and that continues possibly even into the Wednesday time frame with the dominant ridge of high pressure across the south. That just forces any steering mechanisms away from the ridge, so it's going to be up and over the top. So that's going to be essentially where the unsettled weather is going to be, but the most highlighted with the heavier rains. And it's a compounding event. I mean, some of these areas over the next 7 days could pick up possibly 3, 4, 5 inches of rainfall. Definitely not out of the question after you add up all this rainfall over several days. But it just gets crazy warm, especially by Wednesday. I think that's when it really peaks as that dome of high pressure is just parked over Texas, folks. I mean, you're going to be seeing widespread heat indices and widespread actual temperatures now. 105, 110. I mean, Dallas is looking at possibly 110. Some models are talking 113. That's like all-time record, folks. I mean, this easily could be in the top 10 highest, heat ever they've seen. And then across southern Texas, there's a possibility they could be breaking the all-time record today across the Rio Grande Village area in Texas, across the Big Bend. They're looking at 120. And if they do hit 120, that would tie the all-time state record, take you all the way back from the peak of the Dust Bowl days back in 1936. There was another crazy warm day back in 1994. They also hit 120. So, I mean, you're talking some extreme dangerous heat across the South, with even some all-time records possibly be broken across the South. And then we do get a little bit of a reprieve, right? So this map kind of looks weird because, there's the warmth just really takes over, but there is going to be a little bit of a cool front across the middle of the country. So there's a little bit of a relief, but the ring of fire essentially is on full throttle. But eventually that little cool boundary will drift across the middle of the country and dive a little bit further south. So it'll have the instability while you're underneath it. And then by the time we head into, say, Monday, still a long ways off, but so you have a whole week of that heat all week long. But by the time we head into your, July 4th weekend, or maybe around the 3rd or the 4th time frame, that little cool front will actually start shifting further south, reaching back into Oklahoma and actually reaching into portions of Texas by then, while much of the rest of the country around it is starting to warm up in a big way. So for the next 7 days, here's the overall rain breakdown. So obviously further south for the next 7 days, we're really going to be entrapped under that ridge of high pressure. Further north, you got the instability. So you're going to have just light to moderate rain across portions of Oregon, back into Idaho, back into portions of Montana, through into Wyoming. Then stronger storms back in the Dakotas, and heavier rain starts to be activated, obviously, with the severe storms highlighted over Michigan, with that low pressure center going to be really draped across the Great Lakes. But really into the Northeast, those areas, again, 3, 4, 5 inches of rainfall is definitely not out of the question. So there's going to be adding up those totals. And then further south into the Southeast, you've already been inundated over the last week or two with heavier rains, and you'll be adding to those totals across those regions. That takes you through essentially the end of the month. And, you know, with that complements of the cool front by then, there is a little bit of a reprieve across the south. So I think the heat wave will take a back burner by then and get a little bit of reprieve with that shower activity moving back in the picture, same around the 3rd, maybe the 4th time frame. Right when you want to start shooting off fireworks down here back into Oklahoma, portions of Texas could be some back into some, you know, some rain showers by then, and some of these could be some strong storms. So definitely you can't roll it out, but still kind of far out. But either way, the heat wave is going to be taking a back burner for at least a couple of days, as that heat would actually likely shift off into the desert Southwest, and they're really starting to impact much of California back into Arizona with that pretty good, you know, heat by then. And that, again, that won't be until the first couple of days of July. But then, of course, all indications see that ridge of high pressure likely shifting back over the middle of the country, when, you know, kind of once you get beyond that. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update where I protect you before and after the storm.